Welcome to India's #1 budget headquarters. Decoding key policies, delivering market-shaping insights, and unlocking the potential of India's growth blueprint. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal Budget Headquarters.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. I mean, it's a grand studio. We're still working out of. We get to work out of here at least for maybe a day, 2 days more, and we're loving it. But this is also, of course, the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal Budget Headquarters. So welcome to all. The budget was last week's story. This week, the story looks like it is going to be tariffs. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleague Surabhi and Nigel. Guys, hi, good morning.
Hi, morning.
Hi, morning. Didn't much feel like a weekend Sunday or whatever it was, because even on that Sunday, there was so much news flow on the tariff front, and we are getting some pretty severe reactions right now across global market, US futures. Buckle up.
Well,
it's that Monday.
budget, Trump's tariffs, the RBI policy, and earnings ongoing as well. Guys, we've got our hands full. Prashant, let's get straight to the action.
Markets move so fast. I was thinking, what was last week's big story? It was DeepSeek. It's moved.
Yeah,
the budget is gone. Now it's tariffs. Anyway, let's just quickly run through the big talking points, right? So the tariff missile has been fired, and Trump has done it as he has promised he'll do it. These are effective tomorrow. That is Tuesday, so not very much time left. 10% tariffs on imports from China, and 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. I mean, these are the basic headline tariff rates. And this is, remember, 10% is not, and 25% is not just it's on top of the existing tariff. So it's whatever plus 10, whatever plus 25. In terms of energy imports from Canada, it is 10%. So basically oil, etc., it's 10%. Canada and Mexico, as expected, have promised retaliatory tariffs. China's response is the important one. I mean, that has been very mild so far. They've not gone all out and said that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It seems like we're going to go to the World Trade Organization. This is unfair and things like that. They seem to be not wanting to escalate the situation at this point. And that's important to note. The other thing, and I've made this point earlier as well, the motivation, as written in the executive order, seems to be fentanyl and immigration. This is the motivation. There is no sort of, resolution or standard by which, there's no cutoff by when these tariffs will be removed. But the point is, these are, especially fentanyl, etc., these are relatively easy to do. What stops Canada tomorrow from saying, well, we'll do everything we can to stop the fentanyl flow? And I'm surprised no one has done it. They're threatening sort of tariffs on the US, etc., but these are not structural issues. It's not, the U.S. trying to correct 30 years of trade deficit, although Trump has promised that as well. But at least for now, what has been mentioned in these orders is, of course, this fentanyl and immigration issue. So I think at the very margin, maybe a little bit of silver lining. What it leads to one to think is that maybe this is not permanent. This is a situational thing which may get corrected as the situation is resolved at the border. Now, the market reaction is clear. Dollar is up, is bid 1% to about 110. Mexican peso, the Canadian dollar, those are getting sold off. U.S. stock futures, the S&P E-mini is down about 1.7. NASDAQ futures are down. Oil is slightly higher, but nothing very dramatic. So you got a bit of a global uncertainty, but you also have the budget boost to consumption, which came through on Saturday. And this kind of puts the focus squarely on local-facing stocks, which is consumer stocks, economy-facing stocks, stocks which are cut off from whatever happens elsewhere in the global market. There is a lot of debate whether this 1 lakh crore is going to be big and how much is it worth, etc., etc. But keep in mind, there is 1 lakh crore. It's not one time. It's recurring every year. And second, this is more than just a number. It's also a signal, right? It's a big signal. Last 4-5 years has been big 20-25% growth in Capex allocations. Of course, it's moderated over the last 2 years. And for the first time, the government is spending on consumption, putting more money in the hands of consumers. There is, of course, rate cuts expected on Friday from the Reserve Bank of India. That will add to, this mood that I'm talking about. Nifty, just to circle in the levels here, Nifty ended lower. But above the 40-hourly exponential moving average at 23,306. We left off at 23,482. The downside level is 23,110. If the 40-hourly exponential is broken, And on the upside, I mean, the high that we saw on Saturday perhaps is the resistance level, which we need to clear. That is 23,632. Similarly for the Nifty Bank, just to quickly wrap up the levels. So we hit the 40-day exponential moving average and the Bollinger Band. These are levels we highlighted on Saturday morning. And then from there, the market sold off, ended slightly lower. And here, you've got downside level at 48,671 and then the high of 49,993, or you can even go with the Saturday's high, which is higher than 49,993, which will act as a bit of a resistance level. This morning, of course, straight up at an index level, GIFT Nifty will give you an indication of how we're likely to start. But, it's going to be very, very stock specific, and, people are going to look for ideas within the consumption basket. I think that's what's to take note of, and we'll tell you where exactly, which areas as we go along over the next 1.5 hours or so. Surabhi.
And look at that. Nifty is just getting into a jinx. So every time it's going to that recent high of the trading range, 23,500 thereabouts. So today's jinx is tariffs. Very quickly, let's get to the reactions playing out across Asia, and they're pretty severe. Remember, the Chinese market, equity market has still not come back. The Lunar New Year holiday continues up until tomorrow. But you're getting a sense of the reactions in Taiwan, in Hong Kong. Look at how Japan is reacting. That's Hang Seng down about 1.5%. Taiwan's down almost 4%. But even some of the larger markets, like I said, Japan's down over 2%. The Australian market's been down about 1.5%, 1.7% thereabouts as well. So the equity reaction is quite severe. The currency reaction is playing out in the offshore yuan. We'll probably have a more fuller reaction come through once the Lunar New Year holiday gets over. But even there, the yuan has touched a record low versus the dollar. We're talking about levels of around 7.376, so almost going up to 7.38 on the yuan dollar. Now, talking about the yen reaction, relatively speaking, the yen hasn't fallen as much as a lot of the other currencies, including the euro. By the way, the euro's tumbled to a one-year low versus the dollar as well. Even the Swiss franc is weak. The reason why the yen, you can see some green over there, that it's working as a bit of a safe haven right now. And that's because the BOJ policy has been to hike rates. So right now, not too bad on the yen compared to the kind of slide that other Asian currencies are seeing. Finally, I just want to mention crypto as well. Considering the mood is risk-off, Bitcoin has fallen about 6.5% in the last couple of hours, and it's trading below the 95,000 handle as well. So that's just overall sense. What did China say? The official response that we have so far, they're taking this to the WTO. On fentanyl itself, the point that Prashant raised, this is about fentanyl, so why don't countries just say that it's okay, we'll stop the supply? Even Mexico's response has been very, very strong and staunch on fentanyl. Mexico is calling out the US, saying you cannot stop the sale of these harmful substances on your streets. On China, the Ministry of Commerce is saying that the tariff seriously violates international trade, and a frank dialogue and cooperation would be, much more warranted. And they're saying fentanyl is America's problem. The Chinese side has already carried out extensive anti-narcotics cooperation with the US and achieved remarkable results. Japan has noted this, again, because it's a large trading economy and a trading partner. I'm taking note of Japan's reaction as well. Japan says that we're deeply concerned about how the tariffs could affect the world economy. We will have to closely look at how Japan would be particularly affected and take necessary steps in response. Similar, statements out of South Korea, because remember, a lot of South Korean companies, giants like Samsung, have, manufacturing capacity in Mexico. So South Korea is watching as well. And we have the Indian Finance Minister's response, which is going to come up on your screen in just a bit. I mean, she was asked by, obviously, journalists over that Sunday that, what happens if India is next. And the Finance Minister is saying that we're not worried, looking at India's position fairly. The US may not benefit with high tariffs in certain sectors. So the world is reacting. This will take some time to play out. Right now, markets are nervous. That's the short point. Just very quickly to top this off, on the flows picture, guess what? Even on that working Saturday, there were FIIs in the market. They were watching the budget and even trading, and they did what they've been doing, which is selling about 1,300 crores in the cash market. So budget may be over. We have other problems to deal with.
Well, and let's state out the top 3 points that I'm looking at. With regard to the FIs, they were virtually absent actually on Saturday because the gross volumes are down by close to 80%. So today the FIs react to budget, which has a consumption boost. Can they taper down on their selling? That's the hope out here. So we'll keep an eye out on that number. Next up, the derivative data suggests the total open interest is much higher than what we see on averages at the start of a series. In fact, if you compare February with January, on the Nifty, it's nearly 50% higher. So this market is heavy as of now. And finally, the next skew we're looking at is monetary policy easing, which is during the week. And the hope is that the RBI goes ahead and injects liquidity. They've done some bit in the recent past with regard to those OMOs. So liquidity, putting in some liquidity, that's something that we're looking at. How the FI is placed on index futures? Well, The short positions are at around 88%. This is the highest we have seen in the last 15 months. And getting into a budget, we have never ever seen the FIs with 88% of their positions on the short side. Those are the couple of data points with regard to the index futures. Moving to the absolute numbers, the FIs, yes, they're net short, the clients are net long. Both of them are the opposite ends of the spectrum. But a quick check on the options data. Two strikes I'm looking at. 23,500 call on the upside, the 23,200 put on the downside. Both of them were active. And if you're looking at levels, well, you have a couple of goalposts that you're looking at. So on the downside, the 20 DMA comes in at around 23,270. So that's a mark you should be looking at. But going by the options data, you don't want the 23,150 odd mark to break. That's the downside level. On the upside, the swing high was closer to around 23,650. So that becomes the important resistance mark. The Nifty Bank, well, close to around 1% away from here, around 550, 600 points away from here. You have the 20 DMA. You don't want that level to break out. Stocks that I'm looking at, some of these chemical-related names, PI Industries, UPL, as well as Jubilant Ingredient. And the reason that I'm looking at them is because of these tariffs that have been imposed. A high percentage of their molecules go into the US market. There was the fear that Chinese will produce more. That fear gets a little bit of a pushback. So in that sense, valuations as well are relatively attractive in comparison to their 5-year averages. Put all this together, Equaris has come out of the note and they're saying these are the stocks that could be in for a bit of a short squeeze. We'll keep an eye out on that. And finally, guys, is looking at a lot of those budget numbers, the STT collections are expected to go up by close to around 40%. That would mean that the government is factoring that the equity markets could remain buoyant. Because from around 55,000 crores, they're talking about 77,000 crores.
Yeah.
So a glimmer of hope out there. Even Delhi believes that maybe the equity markets should remain buoyant, and that's why they're factoring in these collections.
Will they do anything to help it, right?
Important, and that's the hope.
Absolutely.
Well, they did to an extent, but now I think we have to see if the markets are not happy with all of it, I guess.
Absolutely. Well,